Now, Chapter 3, The Evil White Dwarf. The White Dwarf was born on the island of Kamota in a very old shack. When he was born, he looked like a gift from heaven. His beautiful tan skin and dark hair made his soft face look like a china doll. His parents, Weston and Ivy Schwessel, rejoiced the birth of their firstborn child and raised him with love, and named him William, Will for short. But when Will was 3 years old, a civil war broke out in the major cities of Kamota. The armies of the island were searching the homes of the island for the firstborn sons of each couple. They were to report the children to the army base for training. The little children were to be used as suicide bombers. Devastated by the fact of their son being a suicide bomber, Will's parents quickly packed up a car and fled from the island. They stole a boat from the port and sailed to an unknown island. They settled on the beautiful beaches of the island and tried to build a small home out of wood from the forest. They survived on the island for a few months, but one day, while Will's parents were searching food, they found a bundle of ripened berries. They took it back to their small fort to prepare dinner. Will's mother, Ivy, Will's mother, Ivy, prepared the berries for a small appetizer. While they ate, Will refused to eat the berries. "Come on, Will, honey, you need to eat something." Ivy tried to feed the berries to him once again. Will just shook his head and refused. "Don't worry, Ivy, he'll eat something soon," Will's father, Weston, reassured Ivy. Weston and Ivy continued eating the berries and the rest of the meal. Later that night, Ivy woke up crying and screaming from a tremendous headache and stomachache. She cried until Weston woke up and tried to calm her. "What's wrong, honey?" Weston asked. I can't breathe. My stomach," she cried. She wrapped her arms around her stomach. An hour later, Weston began to feel the same pain, and they both began to moan and groan. Before the sun rose into the sky that morning, Ivy passed away, and only a few hours after she passed away, so did Weston. They seemed to have been poisoned by the berries. No shit. Will was left there to survive on his own. About a day or two after Ivy and Weston died, Will saw a few chunks of wood wash up on the shore. After that, 2 bodies swam up to the sandy beaches, a man and a woman. They stood up slowly, then wrapped their arms around each other. "Oh my, look, it's a child," the woman remarked. She walked over to Will and examined him. "He has such a beautiful face. I hope he's all right." "Look, there's also a boat," the man rejoiced. They appeared to be castaways from a shipwreck who were very rich. "We need to sail away from this island and search for signs of civilization. Let's gather supplies and depart immediately." The man and woman grabbed some useful items and hopped aboard the boat along with Will. They departed from the beach and sailed through the ocean. They arrived at an island and started over again with their new son. They taught him goodness and tried to be the best parents anyone could have, which to him they were. For 11 years they raised him. He became part of their family. Then, when he turned 15, his house broke out in a fire, and his parents risked their lives to save him. He ran as fast as he could to the fire department, but it was too late. His parents perished in the fire. He was so devastated that he dropped out of the school he was attending. He traveled very far from that horrible island that he had spent the beginning of his new life on. He traveled through many cities, but this time nobody wanted him. His once beautiful face that looked as if angels painted it turned albino, and his eyes turned completely black. Nobody wanted to take him in and raise him. After he walked through almost every city on 10 different islands, he walked into a forest on a stormy night. He then got on his knees and crawled, for he was too weak to walk. He crawled into a tree that had a hole in the base of it and slept for a few hours. As he slept, he had dreams of his birth parents, Will and Ivy. He dreamt of the night they ate the berries. He refused to eat them while they enjoyed the very sweet and tart berries. Then he dreamt of when he woke up to the sound of his mother crying. Then, before he knew it, his father was groaning also. Then that morning they died as he woke up for the second time. He then jumped up and hit his head on a thick limb sticking out of the tree. He heard a loud roll of thunder stretch through the trees. He got out. It was pouring down rain. The thick rain drops fell on his bruised and scratched body that was just barely covered in rags. He shivered as the wind sped up to high speeds. He could see the flash of lightning through the trees. He squinted as the rain started to come down harder. A long line of lightning stretched from the clouds above to a few feet in front of him. He walked to where the bolts were striking down and looked up. Then a terrible noise rumbled through the forest as a huge bolt came down and struck him. He had no thoughts at the time except for, why is it still shocking me when lightning only strikes for a split second? He kept feeling more and more powerful as the lightning died down. It finally stopped and he fell to the ground. His bones were aching. He got up and he slowly walked back to the tree that he settled down in before. When he woke up, he felt much better and the sun was shining. He stood up, and when he put his foot down, there was a big earthquake and all the trees collapsed. He put his other foot down and there was another quake, and the trees that had collapsed before flew into the air and fell back down again. He stepped out and realized that the lightning bolt had given him super strength, and he could send bolts of lightning out of his fingertips. One of the trees moved, and he walked over to it, making the earth shake every time he stepped. When he finally got there, he saw that it was a girl. She was dressed in rags also, and was able to survive the first 2 earthquakes, but then died during his small walk to where she was. He picked her up, noticing that she was his age and that she was very pretty. When he put her down, he noticed that his hands were very short, and so were his fingers. Then when he looked down to the ground, he saw that it was closer than before. He touched his face. It was very wrinkly. He started to let out cries of panic as he looked at his stomach and saw that it was very skinny and he could see his ribs. He picked up the girl and ran, for he felt safe around her. He ran to a cave. He looked at the front of it and noticed that it looked like a skull. He had no idea where he was. He entered the cave and made a home out of it. In one of the rooms, he buried the girl and placed flowers on top of her grave. Ever since, he learned how to control his powers and learned to survive. Also, he became more powerful and is known as the White Dwarf.